You're watching Story Scroll. Real stories, raw emotions, and endings you'll never forget. Let's scroll into today's tale.
My father handed my sister the family business, so I walked away, and I couldn't believe what happened next. Growing up, our family business was basically the center of our lives. It wasn't a massive corporation, more like a local chain of stores, but it was our legacy. My father poured decades into building it from scratch, and for as long as I can remember, I was right there with him, learning the ins and outs, managing inventory, negotiating deals, sometimes even staying late into the night when deadlines loomed. I genuinely thought one day I'd take over, continuing the work and pride he had built. But last week, everything I expected went up in smoke. My father called us in his office, me, my sister, and him. He sat behind the desk with that serious look he always gets when he's about to say something monumental. I braced myself for a discussion about succession plans, maybe an honest conversation about my future in the company. I wasn't prepared for what came next. "My daughter will be running the business from now on," he said. I froze. I blinked. I'm not exaggerating when I say my brain literally stopped processing the words. "Wait, what?" was all I could manage. My sister, who's 5 years younger than me, beamed like she'd just won the lottery. She's always been, let's say, confident in her own way. Spoiled, manipulative, capable of bending almost any situation to her favor. And now, suddenly, all the years I spent learning the business, working my ass off while she focused on her social life, counted for nothing. She was getting it handed to her. I wanted to argue. I wanted to shout. I wanted to remind my father that I had been there from the start, that I had put in the blood, sweat, and tears. But when I opened my mouth, all that came out was why. His answer? A shrug. "I think she has fresh ideas. She's creative. I want to try a different approach. You've done your part." I was stunned. That's it. Years of dedication, mentorship, and proof of capability were dismissed as if they were nothing. And the worst part? I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't even hiding the favoritism. It wasn't just a bad decision. It felt personal. And yes, I felt a stab of anger at my sister too, even though she didn't do anything active to hurt me. She just was her, basking in the glow of my father's approval. We weren't close growing up. I tried, but there was always something off. She'd manipulate situations, charm her way out of responsibilities, and somehow convince everyone she was the star of the family. I had been cautious, responsible, committed. She had been loud, flashy, and apparently more deserving of the crown. After the meeting, I couldn't even look at her. I left the office feeling hollow, like someone had punched a hole through my chest. I couldn't believe this was my reality. For the next few days, I wrestled with my emotions. I tried talking to my father, calmly pointing out that I had years of experience, that I knew the operations inside and out, that the staff respected me and listened to me. I even mentioned how risky it could be to hand the reins to someone with little practical experience. He nodded, smiled, and said, "I appreciate everything you've done. Really, but this is what I want. I trust your sister." At that point, I realized something crucial. Staying in that environment wasn't just frustrating, it would compromise me. I could either stick around and watch my work, my ethics, and my dignity get trampled, or I could walk away, even if it hurt. And painful as it was, I knew the right choice was to walk. So I did. I left the company. I didn't fight, I didn't sabotage, I didn't even rage publicly. I just walked. And at first, it was terrifying. I'd spent my entire adult life invested in this business. Walking away felt like jumping off a cliff with no safety net. But here's the thing. Freedom is surprisingly liberating. I started exploring other opportunities, taking projects I'd always wanted to try, but never had the time for. I began consulting for smaller companies, using the skills I honed over years. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive outside the shadow of my father's empire. I was actually enjoying my work again. Meanwhile, from the rumors I started hearing, my sister's fresh ideas weren't panning out so well. Minor mistakes at first, poor management choices, a few missed deadlines. Then bigger ones. Losing key clients, alienating employees, underestimating costs. It wasn't my business anymore, but I couldn't help feeling a mix of vindication and disbelief. Watching her struggle without lifting a finger, Surreal. I know it might sound petty, but it wasn't about gloating. It was about seeing the truth. Years of preparation and hard work don't disappear, and shortcuts don't usually lead to success. I still don't know how this story ends. I don't know if the business will survive her tenure, if my father will regret his decision, or if she'll eventually realize what she's lost. But one thing is clear, walking away was the right choice for me. I didn't sacrifice my principles, my peace, or my future. I just didn't expect what happened next. Update 1. It's been a few months since I walked away from the family business. And honestly, life has been better than I could have expected. I've started consulting for smaller companies, taking on projects I actually enjoy, and for the first time in years, work doesn't feel like a grind. It feels like something I choose to do. Meanwhile, my sister's tenure at the business has been, well, let's just say it's been a disaster in slow motion. At first, I tried not to pay too much attention. I figured, let her make her mistakes, maybe learn something, and maybe my father would eventually see sense. But thanks to a mix of gossip, social media, and occasional leaks from old coworkers, I started piecing together what was happening, and it wasn't pretty. She started with small, seemingly harmless things. One of the best managers, someone who'd been with the company for over a decade, resigned abruptly. The rumor was that my sister had decided to promote her best friend, who had zero management experience, over him. Classic nepotism, but it hit morale like a hammer. Employees were whispering in corners, confused and frustrated, wondering why someone so clearly unqualified was suddenly in charge. Then came the decisions that actually cost money. She insisted on expensive modernizations of the stores that didn't make any sense, giant touch screens, flashy decor, and marketing campaigns that sounded good in theory, but fell flat in execution. Meanwhile, suppliers were complaining about delayed payments, clients were upset with inconsistent service, and some of the long-term contracts were at risk. It hurt to watch, not because I wanted her to fail, well, maybe a little, but because it was so painfully predictable. These were mistakes I'd warned my father about before leaving, and now, watching them unfold from the outside, I couldn't help feeling a quiet sense of vindication. The contrast between us was stark. I had spent years sweating over spreadsheets, memorizing client preferences, balancing budgets, and building a system that worked. She seemed to think charm and flashy ideas were enough to carry the company. And the cracks didn't go unnoticed. Clients who'd known us for years started reaching out, confused about the new management style, asking questions that weren't being answered. Employees whispered about resignations, and there were rumors of lawsuits filed by vendors who hadn't been paid on time. Then there was my father. At first, he maintained his stoic, supportive she's got this front. But I could see it, even from the gossip I heard. Worry etched in the corners of his eyes when he thought no one was looking, subtle sighs when a particularly bad decision was reported. I knew he was starting to regret his choice, but his pride kept him from admitting it, or at least from admitting it to anyone besides himself. Other family members weren't shy about commenting. Cousins and aunts would drop hints when we met for family events. I heard the business is struggling a bit, or, is your sister managing everything okay? I always smiled politely, listening but saying nothing. I wasn't going to get dragged back into their chaos. Then came the messages from my sister herself. At first, they were subtle. Texts like, "Can we talk? I think I might need your advice," or, "Dad says you know the ropes better than I do. Maybe you could help me out." I ignored them. Then she got bolder. One evening, out of the blue, I got a long, rambling email detailing a crisis with a major client she had apparently mismanaged. She tried to guilt me. "I never wanted this to happen. You always know what to do. Why aren't you helping me?" I read it once, then deleted it. Part of me felt sorry for her, yes, but mostly I felt pride. Pride that I had chosen to walk away. Pride that I wasn't the one making catastrophic decisions. Pride that I had preserved my own sanity and integrity. Life for me had shifted in the opposite direction. My projects were thriving, I was getting recognition from clients, and my confidence had never been higher. I wasn't rubbing her failures in her face. I didn't need to, but seeing her struggle without my intervention was strangely satisfying. A quiet reminder that hard work and competence matter. Then came the turning point. I was at a networking event when someone slipped me a piece of information I didn't expect. The business had just lost its largest client, the one responsible for nearly a third of its revenue. Apparently, my sister had mishandled their account, ignored their repeated complaints, and even insulted one of their key executives over the phone. I couldn't help but shake my head. This was exactly what I had feared: predictable, inevitable, and utterly preventable. Soon after, I started hearing whispers of potential lawsuits from vendors, unpaid invoices piling up, and even rumors of employees threatening to unionize just to be heard. The company that had once been a smooth-running machine was now teetering, all under my sister's watch. And yet my father still defended her in front of outsiders. The appearances had to be maintained, I suppose. But the cracks were showing even to the casual observer. People who had once admired the business now questioned it, clients were hesitant, and employees openly complained. The strangest part? I started receiving little anonymous tips from within the company. Short emails, subtle mentions, almost like someone wanted me to know what was happening without directly involving me. I never responded, of course. I wasn't going back. But each tip confirmed what I already suspected. The business was heading toward a full-blown collapse if something didn't change fast. Mixed feelings washed over me. Part of me felt vindicated. Years of dedication had not gone unnoticed, and I had been right to trust my instincts. Another part of me felt pity for my sister, who had been handed an opportunity she clearly wasn't prepared for. And yet another part felt a strange calm, knowing that I had removed myself from the chaos before it could consume me. One evening, she called. I didn't answer. A week later, she sent a message begging for guidance. Please, just tell me what to do. I can't handle this alone. I stared at it for a long time. A small, sarcastic part of me wanted to reply, maybe if you'd listened before, you wouldn't be in this mess. But I didn't. I deleted the message instead. She had to face the consequences of her choices, and I had to preserve my own life, my own boundaries. So here I am, months later. My life is on an upward trajectory, calm and focused. My sister is struggling, my father is conflicted, and the business is teetering. I watch from a distance, quietly observing, occasionally hearing the rumblings of disaster. And while I won't say I'm happy she's failing, because that would be petty, it's impossible not to feel a sense of justice. Final update. It's been nearly a year since I walked away from the family business. A year filled with personal growth, career wins, and clarity I didn't know I was missing. Meanwhile, the business my father handed to my sister, well, it has collapsed in ways I could hardly have imagined. The first cracks I noticed early on, missed deadlines, angry clients, frustrated employees, were nothing compared to what came next. Within months, vendors who hadn't been paid began filing lawsuits. Key clients pulled their accounts entirely. Employees left in droves, some quitting publicly, leaving messages online that criticized management and warned others against working there. Local news even picked up on a few high-profile scandals. A supplier accusing the business of breach of contract, a former employee posting complaints about toxic management, and one story about a major shipment that went missing under suspicious circumstances. And all the while, my sister tried to blame everyone but herself. She blamed the market, the economy, the staff, even me, though I hadn't been involved in any capacity since I left. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had been calling relatives, pleading for sympathy and advice, but everyone, clients, employees, and even some family members, were done listening. My father's reaction was complicated. He never blamed me. In fact, he quietly admitted to close family that he had misjudged my sister's capabilities. There were moments of visible disappointment, mixed with regret, when he realized he had dismissed years of my hard work and dedication. But even then, he didn't turn on me. That realization alone was oddly comforting. I had feared he might lash out or expect me to step in, but instead, he finally seemed to grasp the consequences of his choices without dragging me into the mess. Other family members started speaking up too. Cousins and aunts, who had previously stayed neutral, began siding with me quietly, subtle acknowledgments that my years of effort and competence had never gone unnoticed. Some even apologized for doubting me, for assuming my sister's charm and boldness were a sign of capability. It was a quiet vindication, one that felt more meaningful than any public recognition. As for my sister, her downfall was swift and brutal. Clients stopped trusting her, lawsuits drained her finances, and the social embarrassment was palpable. Invitations to family events became awkward, conversations with extended family strained, and even old friends began avoiding her. She reached out to me once, pleading for advice again, only to be met with polite but firm refusal. This was a consequence she had to face on her own. No lectures, no gloating, just the calm reality that poor decisions have consequences. Irony, as life often provides, was on my side. While the family business spiraled, my own path flourished. Clients I had always dreamed of working with came my way, drawn to my reputation for competence and reliability. Projects I had started months ago expanded, recognition for my field grew, and my confidence soared. I didn't need to compete with my sister's failures. I thrived because I had invested in myself and respected my own principles. There was one particularly poetic moment, though. One of the failing branches of the family business, a store my sister had mismanaged so badly it was on the brink of closure, came up for sale. I bought it quietly at a fraction of its original value and turned it into one of my own ventures. I didn't do it to spite her. I did it because I saw potential where she had seen none. That small victory felt symbolic. Competence, patience, and effort can transform even what others abandon into something sustainable. Looking back, I realized the true victory wasn't financial or professional. It was personal. Walking away, maintaining my integrity, and choosing my own path turned out to be the right decision. I didn't have to fight, manipulate, or drag anyone down to prove myself. Time and circumstance did it for me. Emotionally, I feel a mix of closure and lingering disappointment. Disappointment in my father for misjudging my abilities, disappointment in my sister for squandering what could have been an incredible opportunity, and disappointment in the family dynamics that allowed favoritism to override merit. But there is also forgiveness, an acknowledgement that people make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes must run their course. My role was never to rescue her. It was to protect myself. I've learned a lot from this experience. Family isn't always fair, and legacy isn't always earned the way you expect. Hard work doesn't guarantee recognition, and sometimes the people you love most make choices that hurt you deeply. But self-respect, patience, and competence carry their own rewards. Walking away from what wasn't mine to control allowed me to grow, thrive, and ultimately observe the consequences from a place of clarity, not anger. The business collapse has been difficult for my family, undeniably. My father is more cautious now, more reflective, and though he can't undo the past, he's slowly learning to respect my choices. My sister, well, she's learning too, though at a much steeper cost than I ever experienced. And I'm content, calm, satisfied. I didn't have to fight to prove my worth. I just had to keep walking forward. And in the quiet moments, when I reflect on everything that happened, I realize something profound. Sometimes the right choice isn't the easiest one, and sometimes the people who wrong you most teach you the most valuable lessons, if you're willing to listen.
Thanks for watching Story Scroll. Hit that bell and stay tuned for the next story that will move your heart.